Okay, so we're going to be recording a walk cycle with our Sammy character model rig. I like to start off with when I'm animating, I don't animate with 4 panels. I like to have a different panel setup. And so I'm going to change my panels. So I'm going into panels and I'm going to change I guess I'll go into my panel editor and layouts. Instead of 4 panes, I like to do 3 panes, split the left side. And for me that works well. As an animator, maybe even as a rigger, you're going to find a panel layout that works best for you. But I'm going to do 3 panes, split left, and then I'm good with that. That way, I work over here when I'm selecting things for the most part, and I even do a little bit of moving when I'm over here moving my character. But over here, I do put a side on one, and then I'm going to put the front on the other one. So orthographic front. All right. So I put the side on one, I put the front on the other, and then I'm pretty much good to go. And then I select things here. So these can be for selecting and moving, and these can be all of them can be basically for selecting and moving. Just for me, this has always been kind of the setup that I gravitate towards when I'm animating stuff. It makes it easiest for me. So, all right, we'll notice that our controllers here are shoulder controllers. We already said we're going to be moving shoulders, feet, and pelvis up there. So I've got my shoulder controller. I'm going to tap the W for the move tool. And I notice that on my shoulders, move isn't allowed, so I know I'll be rotating those. For my pelvis, I can move, but I can also rotate. That's good. And then for my feet controllers, I can move and I can rotate. So move, rotate for my feet, my pelvis, but only rotate for my shoulders. Let's go ahead and do a couple things to get us ready to go for animating. First of all, I notice that my animation timeline down here is only set to 24 frames per second. Let's go ahead and just do a simple 30 frame per second setup. So over here on the lower right hand side where it says 24 FPS, we're going to change that to 30 FPS. 30 FPS, 30 frames per second, and that's a pretty good quick walk cycle. So yeah, Seth.
All right, this is like not sort of related. I mean, it kind of is. It's just something that's been bothering me. Why is like one of the presets like 29.97 like FPS? Isn't that like a really oddly specific number?
I'll give you the quick explanation is because back in the day, our hardware is good now, but and you can see the DF there. I've never seen the DF, but what that means is dropped frames. I'm assuming it means drop frames because that's why every 1,000 frames it would drop 3 frames. And so it was just part of this syncing up. So because back when we were doing a lot of this analog, in digital it doesn't drop any frames. So, but for every 1,000 frames that it would render, it would pretty much drop 3 frames. So the number, if you're doing that, if you're accounting for the old school stuff, then it would be 29.97, and you account for 3 frames being dropped.
Interesting.
And so we don't really use that anymore. So the main ones are like 30 and 24. Those are the main ones. I'm not going to go over all these other frames per second things, but 30 is normally for television, 24 is for film, meaning like if you're going to be on the big screen in a theater. So 30 frames per second is television, 24 frames per second is film. I just like doing 30 frames per second because it's a good measure for me when I'm animating stuff. So, all right, good question. I know it's crazy, 29.97. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do then is we need to make sure we know exactly what we're setting keys for, shoulders, feet, and pelvis. And to make things easy, let's just go ahead and set keys for all 5 of those controllers right now in advance. So I notice that I've got my 1 through 30, so that's good, 30 frames per second. Make sure that your slider this little thing right here. Make sure that that's at frame 1. We're going to make it at frame 1. And then using your Q, which is just the select tool, let's not use the move and the rotate tool, because if you use move and rotate while you're selecting, you can accidentally slightly move something and you may not even notice it. As a good animator, you want to make sure you don't move anything unless you do it on purpose. You don't want any accidental animations because usually they're bad. So press your Q and then let's select. I'm just going to start at the top. I'll select a shoulder and then I'm going to hold shift and I'll select the other shoulder and work my way down. Then I'll continue to hold shift and select my pelvis, and then I'll select one foot, and then if I have to rotate a little bit, and then I'll hold shift and select the other foot. I have 5 items selected here, and now I'm just going to set a key for them. The way we set keys, you can do it a couple different ways. You can come up here and change your rigging mode to animation mode, and you can come up here to key and set key. It's perfectly okay to do that, or you can just press the S key to set key. And so anyway, I'll start with that, and you'll notice that it sets a key. That little red line there on the timeline is a key. A key stores information. It has move, rotate, and scale information in it. And if you separate them, it may only have one of those, or it may have 2 of them. But it determines a key stores the X, Y, and Z information for moving, rotating, and scaling. So it can save up to, we'd say, 9 numbers. Yeah.
Doesn't it store all attributes? Like you can, there's more like an on off switch for whatever reason.
Yeah, if you key those, if you're keying all those, yeah, you can do a lot more than that. But since we're only going to be moving, rotating, and scaling, that's the information it sets. But yes, it can also do on-off information and things like that when you're animating other things, like let's say lights. So absolutely, you can do that. So, all right. So we've set a key at 1, and 30 roughly divided, we said there's 4 poses, and so 30 divided by 4 is roughly like 7. It's about 7.5, but we're going to say 7. 7 times 4 is 28, so that gets us pretty close to our 30 frames per second. So let's advance 7 frames. Let's go to frame 8. So just click and drag on your slider over to frame 8. And we're going to, oh, you know what? No, I'm sorry. Back it up. Back it up. We didn't even set our poses yet. All right, so we keyframed it, but now let's go ahead and get in our initial pose. So I'm going to rotate the arms down. So I'm going to go into my rotate and do it in your front viewport, and then just rotate your arm down to its side. And do that to both of them. Rotate the other arm down at its side. There we go, that's good. And let's do, on mine I'm looking at the left leg, so I'm going to do left leg forward first. So you can do whichever one you want. I'm just doing left leg forward first. I'm going to go into my move tool. I selected the left foot, and I'm going to pull the left foot forward until see how the knee straightens out. The knee is bent, bless you. And then the knee straightens out right there, maybe just a touch more, because remember, eventually I got to pull the pelvis down. And then I'm going to select the other foot, and then I'm going to send that one back. And then I'm going to grab the pelvis, and I'll pull the pelvis down just a little bit. Just a little bit. I don't want the front knee to be bent. Maybe just the tiniest little bit there, because when you're walking and your leg goes out front, your leg it's bent while it's coming from back to front, because we don't want to drag our foot on the floor. But then when we step, we kick our leg out. and it's straight out when we're hitting. So we basically straight, bent, straight, bent, straight, bent, like that. So it's straight when it hits the floor. Now, we're not going to mess with rotating ankles and all of that right now. We're not going to do all that for testing. And so, because that gets a little more complicated, and we're just rigging today. So, so anyway, I can't remember if I pulled down my pelvis. Yeah, I did. So I'm gonna put my front foot just a little bit further out. Boom, there we go. I kind of like that. And my back foot, let's see if I'm good with, yeah, I'm good with my back foot. My toe is still on the ground. That looks good. I'm okay with that. Since my left leg is forward, that means my left arm should be rotated backwards. So once again, I'll rotate it back. So I'm going to select my left shoulder, and I'm going to rotate it back just a little bit, right there. And that means my right arm, because my right leg is back, my right arm should be rotated forward. There we go. All right. So I've got my initial pose here. Let's go through and keyframe them. So, and basically what we're doing is we're going to be changing the keyframe information that we already did. So I'll just use my Q tool, and I'll select my shoulder, hold shift, select my other shoulder, my pelvis, my left foot, and my right foot. And then I'll press the S key, and that sets a keyframe right there. So I know it sets a keyframe if I scrub my slider and they stay in position. So I'm scrubbing my slider, it stays in position. All right, that looks good. Now we're going to go to frame 8. We're going to advance 7 frames. We're going to go to frame 8, and same thing again. Let's go ahead. This time I'll start from the bottom up. I'm going to take my left foot, I'm going to move it, and I'm just going to, oh, you know what, before we do this, instead of setting keyframes by pressing S, let's do auto keyframe. Over here in the lower right hand corner, now that we know how to set keyframes, you can press S, or we can auto keyframe. So here's the toggle to auto keyframe. What does that do? It means that the moment you change something, change the move, rotate, or scale in the X, Y, or Z axis, it's going to set a key for us. So notice that on frame 8, there's no key for my left foot, and then when I back the foot up to be right underneath my character and release it, now there's a key there. That red line is the key. So I did that. I'll do the same thing for my right foot. I'll move it forward. There's currently no key there. I'm going to bring it over, but remember we said it needs to be up off the ground just a little bit. And then both legs are bent, so let's grab the pelvis and let's raise the pelvis. There's no key there. I'm going to raise the pelvis until the leg I'm standing on straightens up, and now there's a key there. And now I'll do the shoulders. So I'm going to do my left shoulder first, rotating, and just bring it right there in line with the torso. If I need to see that a little bit, I can pull that down. And then I'll do the right shoulder and animate that coming back in line right there. Once I've done all 5 of my animations, then I always want to check. So I'm going to scrub my slider. So it went from there to there, from 7 to 1, or from frame 1 to 8, frame 1 to 8. Is everything moving? Are both feet moving? Are both shoulders moving? Is the pelvis moving up and down? So if you missed any of those, you can go back and fix it. All right, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to go back, not back, I'm going forward. So 8, I'm on frame 8, add 7 frames to it. We're going to frame 15. I still have my auto animate button on. And again, I'll start from the bottom, you can start wherever you want. I like to start at the bottom. So my left foot is coming back. So it's going to come back. My right foot is going to come, my right foot is going to come forward. There it is. My right foot will come forward and make sure it's on the ground. And it's not touching there, but when I lower my pelvis, then it will be touching. Boom. So it's touching. Good. And then I'll do my shoulders. So think about opposite arm and leg. So I've got the, let's see, I've got my left leg back, which means my left arm needs to go forward. And then my right leg is forwards, which means I'm going to take my right arm and rotate it back. All right, and again, I'm going to scrub my slider and see what the motion is. All right, that's not too bad. So we're going to move forward then from frame 15. We're going to add 7 frames to that. 7 and 15 is 22. So I'm going to frame 22. And then I'm going to put it back where it needs to be. So I've already got one of my shoulders selected, so I'm just going to rotate it back in place. I'll grab the other shoulder, rotate it back in place. I'll grab my legs. Let's see, I'll do my right leg. I'll pull that back under my character, and my left leg, I'll pull that up and over, off the ground a little bit. And then I'll grab the pelvis, pick the pelvis up. All right, that looks good. And once again, I'm going to scrub my slider and make sure that the animation looks good. The current setting, or the default setting for scrubbing your slider and seeing animation, is for it to happen in whatever viewport you have selected. And you can actually, there is a setting where you can make all your viewports move when you scrub your slider, but it does take more processing power and more graphics card power. And so the video cards are so good these days. That's an old school thing when they were trying to optimize, when video cards didn't have memory on them, and when we didn't have a lot of RAM in our computers, and so it's a memory and storage saving thing. I don't know why they do it anymore. I mean, the default to me should be, hey, show it in every viewport, because, but we're only doing a character here. What if I was doing an entire scene and had multiple characters? Maybe it would start to bog down, and that's why I would only want to do it in one viewport. So anyway, I can see both sides of it. All right, so we've got that, and then let's go from frame 22, add 7, and that's frame 29. So we actually got pretty close to 30 frames, and then we're going to put it back again. Now, instead of trying to, let's do it this way first. Let's do it the wrong way first, so we can do it the right way later. All right, so I'm going to try and set it back to exactly the initial pose. So I'm going to start with my left foot. My left foot was forward, so my left foot comes forward. And then my right foot was back. Whoops, my right foot was back. Right foot back. And then pelvis down a bit. Pelvis down. Ooh, my left foot is like way too far forward. Maybe like that. And then my what leg? So my left leg is forward, which means my left arm needs to be back. And then my right arm needs to be forward. All right, and so and then I'm going to scrub my slider and see if I've got a nice easy walk cycle here. Okay, it's pretty good. Now, there will be a click and a pop if I have 30 frames here, because it's animated from 1 to 8 to 15, 22, 29, and then no animation. And when it restarts, there's going to be a weird moment in there at frame 30. So let's shorten our timeline to only the 29 frames that we have keyframed. So down here in my timeline, you see where it says 1 to 30. Grab that little box right next to where it says 30 and just click it and drag to the left until it says 29, because this little slider here, I never know in Maya to call this the slider or if this is the slider. In 3ds Max, this is the slider. And it's actually attached to it, so it's the same thing. In Maya, there's two different ones. And, I mean, it's okay, it's just different, but they're both sliders to me. So I don't know what the name of this one is or that one. They're both sliders, because you just slide them. So, but anyway, so I've got 29 frames. Click in the viewport that you'd like to see your animation, and hit the play button. Woo. Oh, and all right, all you animators, what did we do? What's wrong?
Didn't set the, what it's called.
You gotta right click the play button.
Set the playback speed to real time.
Yes. Yes.
30 FPS times 1.
Right, playback speed right there. So yeah, right click the play button and then choose playback speed instead of play every frame, which is like just as fast as your processor will let you play every frame. I don't even know why that's the default. Again, play it real time. And let's do play every frame max real time. Let's try that. So there we go. So there, I've got a nice, kind of a quick walk cycle there. So, you know, I can walk. If I'm just kind of at a fast walk, I can walk. 1001, 1002, 1003, and I've got a fast walk cycle going in. Let's see if I can walk the same pace, walking the same pace as this guy. So anyway, it's just kind of a brisk walk that we set up. What do I have to do if I want to slow him down?
Spread out the keyframes.
Spread out the keyframes, that's right. Add keyframes in between. So instead of 7 keyframes, maybe I'll add 3 more keyframes. And if I want to slow down his walk cycle, instead of 7, I'll do 10 keyframes per pose. Okay? So you have more keyframes to slow it down, less keyframes to speed it up. So if I want to get a really fast walk, maybe I'm only going to do like 5 keyframes instead of 7. Okay? But we're just testing our rig. We're trying to see. Now look at this. I got a pop here. Pop, pop, pop. Well, I shortened it from 1 to 29. There's 28 keyframes in there. Where's that pop coming from?
The last keyframe doesn't perfectly like smooth into the first one.
That's exactly right. We keyframed by hand the 29th keyframe there, the 29th frame. It's only a keyframe if the frame has a key on it. Because you hear me say frames, you hear me say keys, you hear me say keyframes. The difference is these are frames. We have 29 frames. We only have 5 keyframes. Keyframes are frames that have keys on them. Pretty simple. So yeah, so the 29th frame is a keyframe, but because we did it by hand, we didn't exactly duplicate the information we had at frame 1 to frame 29, so we didn't get it right. I didn't get my pose perfect. I got it close, but I didn't get it perfect, so there's that little pop and click there. So if I want to get it perfectly smooth to where it doesn't click or pop like that, I should just really just copy my keyframe here at 1 and paste it onto frame 29. Okay? So let's do that. I don't even have to reanimate anything because it'll copy over the stuff. So let's do that. Let's stop it. And let's select all of the controls that we're going to key. We'll just do it all at once. So again, I'm going to press my Q so all I'm doing is select both shoulders, holding the shift key, select your pelvis, select your one foot, select the other foot. All right, how do I do this? How do I select all the keys at frame 1 now? Can I copy them? I don't know. Let's see. We'll go to frame 29, and now I'm going to right click, and I'm just going to say paste. Notice it jumped just a little bit. All right, now I'm going to hit play again. Look at that. The pop and click is gone. It's a nice smooth transition. If you didn't see this, you wouldn't know where the first frame was of the animation, because it's so smooth now, because we copied keys at frame 1 and pasted them to frame 29. So frame 1 and frame 29 are exactly the same frame. So, or has the same information stored in the keys there. And so it's nice and smooth. So he actually looks like he goes down a little bit further when his right leg goes further as opposed to when his left leg goes further. But that just gives him, for my traditional, what's another one of my principles of animation? It gives him personality. Actually, that's the goal of all of them, isn't it? Personality. I don't think personality is one of the principles. It's the goal of all the principles, to give him personality. So I did that. And now, once you do your simple walk cycle, if you want to play around with it a little bit and have a little bit of fun with it, you can do that. So, you know, if you want to give him kind of a strut. You ever see somebody strut? I've been watching, my wife and I have been binging Suits. And you know, it's these high-powered lawyers. And if you want to see somebody strut, you look at a lawyer that just like beat down somebody and won a case. Because what do? They're just like, yeah, I just won that case. And they're swinging extra strength, swinging their arm, exaggerating. They're going from side to side. Those shoulders going, yeah, I'm bad. I did it. So think about that. My shoulders are dipping. Of course, I'm exaggerating. My arms are swinging wider. So, hey, so when do I do that? Let's see. I'm going to start. So when I go forward, my right leg is forward, which means my right shoulder goes back. So that's, you know, I'm walking like, hey, I'm bad because I just won my case. So now you can go through and you can add a little more personality to him. A little more personality. It's just something to play with. So let's see. And it also, again, we're just testing, and it kind of helps to know, hey, we're testing. All right, so let's see. My right leg is back, and so we said when the right leg is back, the left arm is back. So I'm going to dip the shoulder there a little bit. So I'm going to start here at frame 1. I'm going to rotate this. So I'm getting my rotate tool, and I'm going to probably right here. You may have to play around with it. I'm going to rotate it just a little bit there, just to start with. So I'm using, what is that, spine 2. I have to set a key there. So I've got to set a key. All right, that looks good. Go to frame 8. I probably need to bring him back up straight again. Go to frame 15. Rotate him a little bit to the other side. Frame 22, back up again. Up straight. And then frame 29, I'm just going to grab this frame here. Right click, copy, go to frame 29, right click, paste. All right, now let's see how bad my guy is. How big of a case did he just win walking down the, let's see. Yeah, he's kind of strutting a little bit. He's starting to get a little bit of strut in there. Moving side to side. He's bad. You know what else? If I want to do something to this guy, I want him to. So, long before you all were born, Richard Pryor was a very funny man back in the day. And so, any of you know Richard Pryor? Some of you? Okay. He was a comedian. And then he went from being a comedian to a film star. And then one day, I think he was like freebasing some meth or something, and he caught on fire, and he was literally running down the street on fire, and he was in the hospital for a long time. And then once he got better, he came back, did comedy, and made jokes about himself being caught on fire and running down the street. He's like, people will get out of your way when you're running down the street on fire. But he had this one bit that he used to do, and it was called his cool walk. And because he grew up in the hood, and he always talked about these guys, these drug dealers, and these guys that were doing drugs all the time. And they had this cool walk, and they were just like, yeah, and they're leaning way back, and swinging their arms, and that was kind of the thing. This was back in maybe the 60s and the 70s, and he did this thing that he did called the cool walk. And so they were just leaning back. He's like, yeah, I'm cool. And so you can do that to your character to give him a little bit of personality. And it was fun, and it was fun to see it, and it was kind of interesting. So you can, whatever you want to do to your character. So maybe I'll grab some of these spine joints and probably pull them back a little bit. There we go. And you can press your S key just to make sure there. And I'll grab this one and pull it back a little bit. S. And then, did I do that one already? I didn't do that one. So I'm going to grab it, pull it back just a little bit. Yeah. So, and then let's see. And I'm going to try and stay on the keys that I already know. And for the spine, for the cool walk, leaning back a little bit, I'm not going to do every 7 frames, but I'm going to still stay on frames 1, 8, 15, 22, and 29. So I'll just go to like frame 15 and maybe rotate these things back just a little bit again. And so you can kind of have fun with it. I'm sure there's a video somewhere, maybe on YouTube, of Richard Pryor doing the cool walk. And so, all right, so now if I want to select all my, if I want to select all the ones I just keyframed, pelvis, all the spine ones that I just did, and then right click here. Let's see, yeah, right click on one, copy, go to frame 29, right click, paste, boom. And now hit play. I'll have to look it up and see if I can find Richard Pryor's cool walk. Oops. So, but anyway. So that's how you can test your animation. Now, did you notice while we're animating, while we're doing anything, was there anything that looked kind of weird or out of place or scrunching up? Any of your... This left leg, my left leg is kind of a little weird. So, so right when it goes back, right there.
That's some trauma.
Yeah, right there, kind of the hamstring. He's got some problems there that I probably. That's just a weighting, skin weighting thing. So it's probably attached a little bit to maybe the pelvis bone up here, and it needs to let go of that. And this should probably be more on this joint there, the hip joint and the knee joint. But yeah, that looks a little funky right there. That needs some fixing because that doesn't look good at all. And then let's see. Oh, and it's all the way back there at frame 15. Yeah, he's got some issues going on there. Let's. You can check other places. The arms don't look bad. They do go through the body here, but that's okay because when my shirt, they just kind of blend together right there. And even though our Sammy character is not wearing any clothes, it's okay a little bit if the arm goes through because he's naked. because the clothes right here, it just looks like they overlap. And that's kind of what's going on right here. Is if he was wearing clothes, that would almost look like just a clothing overlap. So we're not going to really worry about that for what's going on there. And so we could spend some time fixing that, but for our first rig, we're not going to worry about it. That's going to be okay. And then, let's see, where else? All right, I'm going to keep scrubbing and see how does the other leg look. Check your feet. How do your feet look as you're going through the motions here? My feet actually look okay. Ankles look okay. The hip fixed, or the hamstring fixed itself as soon as the leg came back forward again. And let's check out, how does the other leg look? Well, the other leg actually looks pretty good. So the weights are correct on that one, except right here, it looks like there's something going on right around here. And so I may have to fix that. That's not really a rigging problem, that's a skin weighting problem, just like the other one. So you're gonna have to figure out where the skin weight is. Oh, and it looks like something's pulling there. Look at that. That's pulling out also. So anyway, as a rigger and an animator, you're going to be looking at a lot of crotches because that's where a lot of the bunching and bending and creases and crevices and all of that is. It's just kind of the nature of being a rigger, is that you've got to take care of these issues right there, and that's where they are. So, anywhere things bend. So we have armpits. That's a big area of where you're going to see a lot of bunching up and stretching problems like we just saw. Your crotch is going to be an area, and I don't know what you call it. We have armpits, we have knee pits. Are those knee pits? I'll call them knee pits, but your knee pits are another area where it's going to be, where it can bunch up and that you're going to notice. Also your fingers, because our fingers, we don't have pits between our fingers. I don't know what you call them. Just in
Maybe
between.
a little bit of webbing.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of webbing, and so, bunching up and things like that. We just have mitten hands for this Sammy character, so we don't really have to worry about any of that. But anywhere you have a lot of flexibility, like our shoulders have tons of flexibility, and so I can rotate it like 360 degrees. I can't do that with my elbow. Only what did we say last time? It's not even 180, it's like 140 maybe, 145. And then our wrists, they're not quite 360 degrees, but they can go forward and back, they can go side to side, and they can go around like that. Fingers can really only go forward and back. I guess you can wag your fingers side to side a little bit. It's hard to do. I can't do, my pinky I can do. But, so anyway, you've got to think about what areas of your rig need to move and where are they going to bunch and what do I need to be aware of and look at when I'm going over my rig, okay? All right, so that's an animation test. So what I would like for all of you to do, if you didn't follow along, if you followed along with me, you've done it. Make sure your walk animation looks good, but you've got some areas that you probably need to work on tonight in order to fix, or while we're here for the next hour. So you've got some areas that maybe you need to fix. My character does, that's for sure. And so I'd have to take that and I'd have to do some skin weights. Remember to save incrementally, because you can screw up skin weights a lot worse than what it is here. So this may be as good as you're going to get today before you hand in your assignment, because you might work tonight and be like, I got to paint those weights and whatever, and it's just not working, it's getting worse. At least you got this model to go back to. So save the one here, and when you start working on it, save incrementally, so if you make things worse, you've still got this decent one, okay? So do that. If you weren't able to follow along with me today, I am recording, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off my recording because we're done.